Deep in the heart of uncharted space, where the galaxy's borders fade into the unknown, the Galactic Empire's vast network of sensors picks up something unusual at first. It seems like nothing more than cosmic interference, a blip among the background hum of space signals. But as the anomaly persists and shifts, it becomes undeniable. This is something more. The signal is deliberate, clear in its structure and rhythm, a signal that can only be one thing: a message. The Empire's top analysts and engineers are called to investigate immediately. As the signal grows stronger and more distinct, it seems to have an ancient quality to it, one that resonates with an odd familiarity, yet is unlike anything in their database. At first, they speculate that it could be the remnants of a lost species, or perhaps a relic of some forgotten civilization that once thrived long ago. But as the data pours in, a startling conclusion is drawn: the transmission is human in origin. The realization hits the Empire like a thunderclap. Their minds reel with the possibilities of what this could mean. A human signal. How could this be? It's been centuries since humanity had vanished into the dark void of space, their colonies and fleets scattered across the stars, long since abandoned. No one had heard from them for generations. The records from that era are patchy at best. The Empire's most advanced historians and linguists are brought in to analyze the transmission and confirm its authenticity. Their theories range from the impossible to the absurd, but one thing is clear: this is no simple message. Emperor Kalfar himself is notified of the discovery. The news stuns him at first. The Empire's arrogance has always told them that they were the pinnacle of civilization. And yet here was something ancient and unaccounted for. It raises more questions than answers. Kalfar's first instinct is to dismiss it as a long-forgotten relic of a species long extinct. But something about the signal nags at him. It feels deliberate, purposeful, as if it were sent to be found. After much deliberation, and with a mixture of curiosity and arrogance, the Emperor orders a full-scale expedition to investigate the source of the transmission. An elite fleet of warships and cruisers is assembled under the command of General Vrenner, a seasoned officer with decades of battle experience. He is told little of the specifics of the mission, only that this could be the discovery of a lifetime or a trap designed to lure them into some unknown danger. But for the Empire, no risk is too great. The fleet sets off into the unknown. Their journey takes them into the furthest reaches of the galaxy, to a place no one has dared to venture before, a place where no known species reside, a place that has been deliberately excluded from the Empire's maps and trade routes. The region is barely charted even by their most sophisticated navigational systems. The journey is long and uneventful at first, but as they draw closer to the source of the signal, there is a shift in the atmosphere, an unease that spreads through the fleet like a subtle tension in the air. The fleet continues its march toward the unknown. Only the hum of their engines and the cold silence of space accompany them through the darkness. The signal grows louder, clearer with each passing moment, until finally, after what seems like an eternity of travel, the fleet arrives at the source of the transmission, a small planet nestled within a system that had been deemed uninhabitable by the Empire's most advanced surveys. The planet is green and alive, a striking contrast to the cold void of space that surrounds it. And as they prepare to land and make first contact, the Empire's commanders feel an uneasy anticipation, their minds filled with questions they may never have answers to. The Empire's fleet hovers just outside the atmosphere of the planet, its massive ships looming like shadows in the sky. Below, the green surface stretches out untouched by the mark of any known civilization, at least not one that the Empire has ever encountered. There are no cities, no roads or signs of industrialization, only wild forests, towering mountains, and vast bodies of water. The planet seems almost too perfect, too pristine to be a place where anyone could have lived, much less send a signal to the far reaches of the galaxy. General Vrenner stands on the bridge of the lead warship, his hands clasped behind his back, his expression cold as he studies the readings before him. The data confirms what their sensors had first detected. The planet is rich in resources and potentially valuable to the Empire, but there is no sign of advanced technology, no ships, no defenses, just the faint traces of an ancient signal. But still, Vrenner feels a gnawing unease in the pit of his stomach. There's something about this place that doesn't sit right with him. He looks over to his subordinates, each one tense, as the fleet begins its slow descent into the atmosphere. The air feels thick, as if the planet itself is holding its breath waiting for them to land. As the warships break through the clouds, the view of the planet's surface opens up below them, revealing a sprawling landscape of dense forests and wide plains. The colors are bright and vibrant, as if the land has never been touched by the horrors of war. Vrenor takes a deep breath, his instincts telling him to be cautious, but his orders clear. The Emperor's directive is simple: investigate the source of the signal and report back anything that could be of use to the Empire or be a threat to its power. The humans are a mystery, something to be unraveled, something to be conquered if they are found to be of any value. But the more Vrenor watches the planet below, the more a quiet voice in his mind warns him that there is more to this world than meets the eye. The fleet lands in a clearing just outside a dense forest. The air is cool and fresh, the ground beneath them soft with the touch of moss and grass. The soldiers disembark one by one, their boots sinking into the earth. As they form ranks, the humans who had sent the signal are nowhere to be seen. Only the soft rustling of trees and the distant calls of strange creatures fill the air. Vrenor signals for the scout teams to spread out and begin searching for any signs of life or civilization. But as the minutes stretch into hours, there are still no signs of the humans who called out to them. As night falls over the planet's surface, the fleet remains on high alert. The men and women of the Empire stand watch around their landing zone, their eyes scanning the darkened trees for any sign of movement. Yet nothing happens, not a single whisper of sound out of place. The humans are silent, their presence absent, as if the signal had been nothing more than a passing thought, a memory lost to time. General Vrenor stands at the edge of the camp, looking into the forest, his mind racing with questions. Where are the humans? Why haven't they shown themselves? Are they even here at all? Or was this an elaborate trap, a lure to draw them? In the silence grows unbearable, and for the first time since the Empire's fleet arrived, Vrenor feels something he hasn't felt in years: uncertainty. As the first light of dawn breaks across the horizon, something shifts in the air, an inexplicable feeling of anticipation, like the calm before a storm. Vrenor feels it in his bones. The humans are here, they have been watching all along, and whatever happens next will change everything. The morning sun rises slowly over the dense forest, casting long shadows across the camp as General Vrenor and his officers prepare for another day of searching. The silence of the night has given way to a new stillness, as if the planet itself is holding its breath. There are no sounds of birds or wildlife, only the soft rustling of the trees in the gentle breeze. Vrenor's eyes scan the horizon, a sense of unease gnawing at him as he watches the surroundings, feeling as though the very air around them is waiting for something to happen. The scout teams that were sent out the previous day return empty-handed, their reports vague and inconclusive. No signs of human life, no structures, nothing that might indicate the presence of an advanced species. But there is something else in their reports. A pattern, a strange consistency. Several scouts mention glimpsing shadowy figures moving in the trees at the edge of their vision, figures that vanish before they can get a clear look. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's enough to cause tension to ripple through the ranks. Despite the mounting questions and the growing unease among his men, Vrenor remains resolute. His orders are clear. The signal came from this planet, and if there are humans here, they will find them. His mind races with possibilities. Perhaps the humans have been hiding in plain sight. Maybe they are far more advanced than their signal suggested. Or perhaps they are merely survivors of a forgotten colony, reduced to a primitive existence. Either way, they are about to make contact. As the sun climbs higher in the sky, the tension within the camp begins to crack. Without warning, the air around them seems to shift, as if the very environment has suddenly come alive. The soldiers stiffen, their weapons at the ready, but there's no movement, no noise. It's as though the forest has become a silent spectator to their presence. And then, as if on cue, they appear. A small group of humans, no more than a dozen, emerge from the trees at the far edge of the camp. They move with an ease and confidence that is immediately disarming. Their appearance is unexpected, dressed in simple, rugged clothing, their faces weathered but strong, eyes sharp and unyielding. They carry no weapons, yet there is a sense of authority about them, as though they are not afraid of the soldiers who stand in awe of them. Vrenner watches intently as the humans approach, his soldiers tense but awaiting his command. The humans stop a few paces away from the camp, their eyes fixed on him and his officers. They say nothing at first, simply observing, but there is something in their gaze, something that sends an unmistakable message. We know who you are, and we are not afraid. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, one of the humans steps forward. She is taller than most, her posture straight and her eyes unwavering as she meets Vrenner's gaze. There is no fear in her expression, only an implacable calm. She speaks, her voice clear and steady, though there is no trace of surprise in her tone. "You came for us," she says, her words simple but heavy with meaning. "And now you have found us. But do not think for a moment that you are the first to seek us." Vrenner is momentarily taken aback. The human speaks as though they had known the Empire would come for them, as though this moment had been anticipated. He takes a step forward, his curiosity getting the better of him. "You are the ones who sent the signal?" he asks, trying to mask the wariness in his voice. The woman nods. "Yes," she replies. "We have waited a long time for this. And now that you are here, you will see that we are not what you think we are." Her words linger in the air, heavy with implications. Vrenner feels a chill run down his spine. There is something about these humans, something far beyond what the Empire had expected. They are not afraid, not intimidated by the presence of the mightiest military force the galaxy has ever known. And that, more than anything, unsettles him. As the woman finishes speaking, the other humans behind her step forward, their eyes watching the Empire's soldiers with a calm intensity that makes the air around them feel charged. Vrenner senses that this is no ordinary first contact. The humans are not the meek, primitive species he had anticipated. There is something more to them, something powerful, something ancient. And in that moment, he knows that this encounter will shape the future of the galaxy in ways no one can yet predict. The air between the Empire's forces and the humans is thick with unspoken tension. General Vrenner stands at the forefront, his eyes narrowed, studying the group before him. The humans make no move to engage in any formal greeting, no sign of submission or reverence. They simply stand, their presence undeniable, their gazes unwavering. It is clear that they are not afraid, not even a little. They do not see the Empire's warships as a threat, nor do they seem in awe of the advanced technology that looms just behind Vrenner. If anything, they seem to have expected this moment, their calm demeanor an unnerving contrast to the silent military might at their backs. Vrenner, ever the strategist, feels a ripple of discomfort. His experience in warfare has always been with the expectation that any new species, if they were indeed a threat, would cower or at least show some semblance of fear. The humans, however, give nothing away. They seem almost detached, as if the arrival of the Empire was just another part of their grand design. He wonders if this is some elaborate ruse, or if these humans truly know something the Empire does not. One of the humans steps forward. A man, middle-aged, with sharp eyes and a steady gait. His face is lined with age, yet his eyes carry a sharpness, a vitality that belies his outward appearance. He speaks, his voice clear, the words deliberate. "We did not call you here to conquer us," he says. His tone is neither confrontational nor submissive, merely factual. "You came because you felt a disturbance, an anomaly in your sensors. But now you are here, and you will learn why." Vrenner listens, his mind working furiously to process the implications of the man's words. The humans are not defensive, nor are they offering any form of submission. They are simply stating facts, as though their presence and the purpose of their actions are as natural as breathing. The man continues, his eyes never leaving Vrenner's. "You have traveled far, with weapons that could turn entire star systems to dust. You believe you are the pinnacle of existence, that power and destruction are the only things that define a species. But power has many forms, General Vrenner. The kind you bring to bear is not the only kind that matters. Vrenner's mind races. This is no ordinary encounter. This isn't a species that can be cowed by threats or intimidation. It is as if the humans are speaking from a place of knowledge, a place of experience that surpasses anything the Empire has ever encountered. His soldiers, standing at attention just behind him, shift uncomfortably under the weight of the humans' gaze. They are soldiers of the Empire, bred for combat, trained to fight, to dominate. Yet even they seem unsettled by the humans' unyielding calm. The man looks around at the silent forest, his expression unreadable. Your empire is vast, yes, he continues, but you are not the first to rise to power, and you will not be the last. History is a circle, General, and we, humans, are its keepers. We've seen empires rise and fall, species come and go, and we've endured. The words hang in the air like a challenge, but not one spoken in anger or malice. There is no hatred in the man's tone, no sense of superiority. It is as though he is merely stating a truth, one that the Empire is unprepared to understand. Vrenner feels a flicker of doubt in his chest, the unsettling feeling that perhaps, despite all the Empire's might, it may not be the apex of all things. Perhaps there is more at play here than simple conquest and domination. We are not here to challenge your empire, the man says softly. We are here to show you something far greater, a purpose beyond power, a reason to live, not just to conquer. The general stands motionless, considering the human's words. This is no simple first contact. It is not about technology or weapons, nor is it about land or resources. This is something deeper, more philosophical, an ideology that challenges everything the Empire stands for. The humans speak not of war, but of something Vrenner cannot fully comprehend, a sense of purpose that seems to transcend everything the Empire's vast network of starships and soldiers represent. The other humans remain silent, watching intently, their eyes calculating, waiting for Vrenner's response. It is clear now that these humans are not simply survivors of an ancient world. They are something more, something far more formidable than the Empire had ever anticipated. And Vrenner knows, with a growing certainty, that the Empire will not be the ones to shape this encounter. It will be the humans who decide what happens next. The silence that follows the humans' words hangs in the air like a storm about to break. General Vrenner, though deeply unsettled by the calm authority of the humans, knows that he cannot show weakness. His mind sharpens, refocusing on the task at hand. This is a first contact, yes, but it is also a test, a trial, whether the humans realize it or not. The Empire does not simply come to a planet to ask questions. It takes what it wants. If the humans are truly as powerful as they seem, if their resolve is as unshakable as their words, then they must prove it. Vrenner takes a step forward, his eyes narrowing as he addresses the leader of the humans. You speak of endurance, of purpose, of a history beyond your time. But you have yet to show us anything. What can you offer that the might of the Empire cannot overwhelm? Words are empty without the strength to back them. The human leader, a woman with intense eyes, regards him for a long moment. She doesn't flinch, doesn't look away. Her expression is calm, almost pitying. If you truly believe your weapons are all that matters, General, then you are blind to what makes us who we are. Vrenner's frustration grows. You misunderstand. I don't need to be convinced of your survival. I need to see your strength. Show me your power, and then we will talk. The woman glances to her side, where a young man, one of the humans who had been silent until now, steps forward. He is unarmed, wearing nothing more than the same simple attire as the others. His stance is relaxed but confident, his eyes bright with a strange intensity. He looks directly at Vrenner, as though seeing right through the hardened military officer. This is not a battle you will win with weapons, General, the man says calmly. But we'll show you a different kind of strength. Without another word, He turns and begins to move toward the nearby forest, disappearing into the thick underbrush. Vrenner watches, confused for a moment, before signaling for his soldiers to follow. The humans are testing them, pushing them into a kind of confrontation Vrenner doesn't fully understand. Yet he cannot ignore the urge to follow. There is something compelling, magnetic about the way the humans move and speak. The entire group of Empire soldiers, Vrenner included, follows the young man into the forest, the trees closing in around them. The deeper they go, the more the terrain shifts. The ground becomes uneven, and the air feels thicker, heavier with humidity, and an almost unnatural stillness. After what seems like an eternity of walking, they come to a clearing, and Vrenner's eyes widen in disbelief. Before them stands a massive rock formation, jagged and towering, its base surrounded by large boulders and stones. The young man, who has been silent up until now, steps toward the formation and, without warning, begins to climb the sheer surface of the rock with an ease and speed that takes Vrenner's breath away. His movements are fluid, almost effortless, and within moments he reaches the top. The Empire soldiers exchange confused glances, unsure of what they are witnessing. The young man turns to face them, his face already streaked with sweat, but his expression remains as calm as ever. "This is strength," he calls down to them. "This is what we are." Vrenner's brow furrows. The man has climbed an impossible height with no tools, no ropes, nothing but his own body. It is a feat that defies logic, and yet here he stands, effortlessly perched atop the rock formation, as if it were nothing. He is not simply a person overcoming physical challenge. He is demonstrating something deeper, a kind of resilience, a willpower that seems boundless. Vrenner, though hesitant, signals for his soldiers to try. One by one, they approach the rock formation, attempting to scale it as the young man had done. It is clear, almost immediately, that none of them have the same ease or speed. Some of the soldiers struggle to climb even halfway up, while others fail entirely, slipping down the rocks and landing with harsh thuds on the ground below. Their frustration grows, but the young man watches them with detached curiosity. After several failed attempts, Vrenner steps forward. He is a soldier of the Empire, a man who has commanded armies, led countless battles, and survived in the harshest of conditions. But as his fingers grasp the rocks, his hands begin to tremble. It isn't just the physical challenge, though that is undeniable. It is the sheer will that he realizes the humans possess. This isn't something a machine can replicate. This is not just physical strength, but the strength of the human spirit, an indomitable will that will not break, no matter the odds. Vrenner finally gives up, his body shaking with the effort. He looks up at the young man, who remains atop the rock, looking down at him with quiet amusement. "This is just a taste, General," the young man says softly. "We do not conquer with weapons alone. We conquer with the strength of who we are." Vrenner stands in stunned silence, his mind grappling with the realization that the human strength is not something he can simply crush under the weight of the Empire. It is something far more elusive, something far more dangerous. And for the first time, he begins to question whether the Empire will ever truly understand the power they have encountered here. The Empire's forces, still reeling from the brutal trials they've just endured, are beginning to fracture. General Vrenner stands at the edge of the camp, staring out at the forest that surrounds them, feeling the weight of the situation settle deeper into his bones. The humans, those seemingly fragile, unarmed beings, had shown them something that Vrenner had never anticipated. Not just physical strength, but an unyielding will that had defied all expectations. The trial of the rock formation had been just the beginning. The humans' true advantage, it seemed, was not merely in their bodies but in their resolve. A resolve that had withstood the harshest conditions the galaxy could offer. It was now clear to Vrenner that this was no ordinary encounter. The humans were not simply survivors or primitive creatures waiting to be conquered. They were something far greater, something far more dangerous. The Empire's might, its vast fleets and armies, seemed insignificant in the face of their perseverance, and that realization gnawed at him, sending a ripple of doubt through the ranks of his soldiers. At night, Vrenor had gathered his senior officers for a strategy meeting, their faces grim in the flickering light of the warship's command table. The mood was tense, the air thick with frustration. Many of them had believed this would be an easy conquest, an easy expansion of the Empire's borders. But the reality of the situation was far different. The humans, despite their apparent lack of technological sophistication, were holding their ground with a precision and resilience that made the Empire's best tactics seem ineffective. "We underestimated them," said Captain Jarek, his voice harsh as he leaned over the table, his eyes scanning the holographic map. "We thought their primitive appearance would make them easy to crush. But their strength is not in their weapons. It's in their minds, their ability to adapt." Vrenner's fingers tightened around his datapad, frustration building within him. He had never faced an enemy like this, one that seemed to shift and adapt with every move they made, one that refused to be overwhelmed by superior technology or numbers. The humans were relentless, their resolve unbreakable, and that was something Vrenor could not account for in his military calculations. "We need to adjust our tactics," he muttered, more to himself than to the others. "We can't fight them like we fight other species. This won't be won with firepower alone." The room fell silent as Vrenner's officers exchanged glances. It was an admission they had all been unwilling to make until now. The Empire had always relied on its technological supremacy, on its unyielding military might. And now, they were faced with an enemy who did not fear them, did not fall prey to their usual strategies. This realization was a bitter pill to swallow, but it was the truth. "Perhaps the solution," Vrenor said, "isn't to force them into submission. Perhaps it is to understand them, to see how they think, how they survive." That night, as the Empire's soldiers rested uneasily, Vrenor decided to take a more direct approach. He would meet with the humans again, not as an invader, but as a leader seeking answers. He wasn't sure what he would find, but the reality of the Empire's situation had become undeniable. The humans were not the threat they had expected. They were something more, something that had learned how to survive by enduring, by adapting, by drawing strength from their collective will. The next morning, Vrenor ventured into the forest once again, this time alone, with only a small group of trusted officers. The humans, as always, were waiting for him, silent, watchful, as if they knew exactly what he had come to ask. The woman who had spoken to him before, the one with the quiet authority, approached him once again. "You are not here for conquest now," she said softly, her eyes meeting his without fear. "You have seen what we can do, but more importantly, you have seen how we live." Vrenor nodded, his voice low. "I've seen enough to know that you are not like any species I've ever encountered, but I still don't understand. How do you survive? How do you keep going when everything else falls away?" The woman regarded him for a long moment, as if considering whether to share the truth with him. Finally, she spoke. "Because we know the value of life, General. We know that survival is not about brute force. It's about purpose. It's about the will to carry on, no matter what." The word struck Vrenor like a physical blow. He had always believed that survival was a matter of power, of technology, of dominating the environment. He had been taught that the strongest survive, the fittest prevail. But now he was faced with a species that had endured not because of their strength or their weapons, but because they had found a deeper meaning in life itself. The woman's words lingered in the air, and Vrenor felt the foundations of his understanding shift beneath him. For the first time, he realized that the humans were not simply trying to survive. They were thriving. They were not driven by the need to conquer or destroy, but by something far more fundamental, something the Empire had lost sight of long ago. As he turned to leave, he knew one thing for certain. The Empire was not the only power in the galaxy anymore, and the humans, those unassuming beings who had once seemed so weak, had just proven that they held a strength that the Empire could not even begin to understand. General Vrainer stood motionless in the clearing, his mind a maelstrom of conflicting thoughts. The woman's words echoed in his head. Survival is not about brute force, it's about purpose. For the first time, he questioned everything he had known about warfare, about power, about what it meant to truly survive. The Empire had conquered countless worlds, wiped out entire species, and expanded its reach across the galaxy with unmatched might. But these humans, with their simple resolve, had shown him something far more profound, something that neither weapons nor armies could ever replicate. Vrainer turned to face the group of humans who had gathered around him. They watched him with calm, unblinking eyes, their expressions unreadable but not hostile. They were not a species on the brink of extinction, nor were they on their knees begging for mercy. They were resolute, confident, as if they had nothing to fear from the greatest military power in the galaxy. He felt a wave of frustration wash over him. Why do they act as though they have already won? He thought. But the longer he stood there, the more he realized that their victory was not in defeating the Empire. It was in their ability to stand unyielding in the face of an invader who had no clear way to understand them, to break them. The woman who had spoken earlier stepped forward once again, her gaze steady and unflinching. "You understand now, don't you?" she asked, her voice gentle but firm. "The Empire believes that power is measured by what it can destroy, but true power is in what you can preserve, what you can protect." Vrainer's breath caught in his chest. The concept was alien to him. He had always thought of power in terms of domination, in terms of total control. The Empire had taught him to measure success by the weight of fleets and the might of weapons. But here, standing before him, was a species that had endured countless trials and hardships, not because they had destroyed their enemies, but because they had learned to live with them, to adapt, to find strength in the very things that the Empire would seek to crush. "The Empire destroys everything in its path," Vrainer said, the words bitter on his tongue. "And you seek to preserve." The woman nodded. "We do not destroy. We adapt. We find balance. And that, General, is what gives us our strength." Vrainer wanted to argue, to dismiss her words as naive idealism, but deep down, he knew there was truth in them. The Empire had always been about consumption, consuming resources, consuming planets, consuming species. It was a machine built for destruction, but it had never learned to preserve, to protect what truly mattered. The humans, however, had found something else, something the Empire had lost. The man who had climbed the rock formation earlier approached Vrainer, his expression still as calm as ever. "You see, General, we didn't need your weapons to show our strength. We didn't need your ships or your armies. We needed only what we've always had, our will to survive, our will to preserve, our will to protect the things we value." Vrainer could feel the weight of those words pressing down on him. He had come here expecting to find a species ripe for conquest, a world to be claimed and added to the Empire's ever-expanding territory. But instead, he had found something else, a challenge to everything he believed. The humans did not need the Empire. They didn't need to conquer. They simply needed to exist, to protect their way of life. And in doing so, they had become something far more formidable than the Empire could ever comprehend. Vrainer exhaled slowly, his mind racing as he processed the enormity of what he had just learned. His orders had been clear: investigate the signal, assess the threat, and eliminate any possible danger to the Empire's interests. But in the face of the human's quiet resolve, he was beginning to question everything he had been taught. The woman watched him silently, her expression unreadable. She seemed to sense his internal struggle, her eyes softening just slightly. "You may still be thinking of conquest, General, but you need to understand one thing. If you try to conquer us, you will fail. Not because we are invincible, but because we don't need to win through force. We win by surviving." Vrainer turned his gaze toward the warships in the distance, the massive structures that had once seemed like symbols of invincibility. The Empire had always believed that power came from the size of its ships, the firepower of its cannons, the strength of its armies. But now, standing here, faced with a species that had lived for centuries without needing to conquer or destroy, Vrenor realized that the true strength was not in weapons or might. It was in the ability to endure, to adapt, and to find meaning in survival itself. For the first time in his life, General Vrenor felt the weight of doubt settle deep in his heart. He had been trained to lead, to command, to conquer. But in the presence of these humans, he was beginning to understand that the real question was not how to conquer, but why. And as the morning sun filtered through the trees, casting long shadows across the ground, Vrenor knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The sun rose higher, casting its golden light over the forest that surrounded them, and General Vrenor stood silently, his mind caught between the empire he had pledged his life to and the undeniable truth the humans had shown him. The warships in orbit, the thousands of soldiers under his command, all seemed distant now, irrelevant in the face of something far more profound. He had come to this planet seeking to conquer, to assert the Empire's dominance over yet another world. But now, as he looked at the humans who had faced him with such unwavering resolve, he wondered whether the true path forward was one of submission or something else entirely. The woman who had spoken so calmly about survival and preservation stood before him once again, her presence calm yet commanding. She said nothing at first, her eyes scanning his face for any sign of understanding, any hint that he had truly grasped what they were offering. Vrenor remained silent, his mind working through the implications of everything he had seen and heard. This was not about strength in the traditional sense. The Empire's power lay in overwhelming force, in the ability to destroy. The humans, though, wielded something far subtler, an inner strength that came from their connection to their world, to their people, and to their purpose. "We are not enemies, General," the woman said quietly. "We never were. But we cannot allow you to reshape our world, not without understanding why we fight so fiercely to protect it." Vrenor's gaze shifted from the woman to the young man who had scaled the rock formation earlier. There was no fear in their eyes, only a quiet determination. He had expected them to resist with weapons or armies, but instead they had resisted with the strength of their will. They had made him see that power could be something far greater than military might. It could be the ability to endure, to preserve, and to remain steadfast in the face of overwhelming odds. "I came here with orders," Vrenor said at last, his voice heavy with the weight of the dilemma he now faced. "The Empire demands the expansion of its borders, the collection of resources, the subjugation of those who are weak. But what you've shown me, it's not weakness I see in you. It's something I'd never encountered before." The woman nodded, her expression softening. "Strength comes in many forms, General. And the Empire's view of strength is narrow. You cannot measure us by the same standards you measure yourselves. We fight to protect the essence of what it means to be human. Our lives, our families, our future. We are not afraid to face adversity because we know that survival is not a matter of domination. It's a matter of resilience." Vrenor's soldiers, who had remained at a distance, exchanged uncertain glances. They were trained to fight, to overpower, and the situation was growing increasingly uncomfortable for them. But Vrenor knew, deep within himself, that they could no longer simply charge in with weapons blazing. The humans were not their enemies in the traditional sense. They were something more complex, something that challenged everything the Empire stood for. "I have seen enough," Vrenor finally said, his voice quieter now, almost reflective. "You are not the enemy I expected. And you are not the enemy the Empire thinks you are. I came here to conquer. But what I see now is a challenge, one that forces me to reconsider everything." The woman's eyes softened, though there was no joy in her expression, only understanding. "It is not about us, General. It's about the choices you make now. We don't need to destroy the Empire. You will destroy yourselves if you continue down this path." Vrenor felt a chill as the weight of her words sank in. The Empire's unchecked expansion, its endless hunger for more, had already begun to erode the very foundations it was built on. The drive for domination had consumed their morality, their sense of purpose. The humans, in their quiet, unyielding way, had reminded him of something he had almost forgotten: the true cost of conquest, the toll it took not just on those who were conquered, but on those who waged the war. For a long time, there was only silence as Vrenor stood there, the reality of the situation pressing down on him. He thought of the Empire, the countless lives lost in endless campaigns, the worlds that had been ravaged, the civilizations reduced to dust. He thought of the future, a future where the Empire, unchecked and uncontested, would only continue to spiral into decadence and destruction. And then, for the first time in his life, he understood the choice before him. The Empire's might was a facade. It could not hold forever. What would be left in its wake? What kind of future would they be building if they continued on this path? The woman's words echoed in his mind once more. We don't need to destroy the Empire. You will destroy yourselves if you continue down this path. Vrenor's decision came swiftly, almost instinctively. He turned to the officers standing behind him, who were watching him with expectant eyes. He had given them orders, led them through countless battles, but this time, the choice was his alone. He felt a strange sense of clarity, as though the fog that had clouded his judgment had finally lifted. "We will leave," he said, his voice steady. "We will return to the Empire. And we will report back, but not as conquerors. We will warn them." The woman's gaze softened, though she said nothing. She had known that this moment would come. And now, as Vrenor and his soldiers began to retreat, she offered a quiet final word. "Remember, General, strength is not in domination, but in knowing when to walk away." As the soldiers of the Empire made their way back to their ships, General Vrenor looked back one last time at the humans. They stood there, watching him leave, not with hatred, but with a quiet, unspoken understanding. For the first time in his life, Vrenor felt something he had never expected, a glimmer of hope. The Empire might not be beyond saving, but only if it could learn what the humans had known all along.